The management of an economy is a very serious business and cannot be reduced to comic relief and inciting the public against expectations that cannot be met. Mr. Speaker, whilst the people of Ghana were jubilating yesterday, especially our brothers and sisters who are into imports and are into distributive trade, reminiscent of the days of the first budget of the MPP in 2017, when the people of Abosokan were celebrating the abolition of import duties. I said to myself, this is the second deceit that will hang the MPP forever in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency the Vice President made a number of profound statements that were not supported by facts. And so even as the people of Ghana were contemplating whether it was the economy that we knew or that we have suddenly been transported to heaven, the international community began to give a verdict. And I'm sad to report and to give a word of caution to His Excellency the Vice President not to once again plunge this country into international disgrace. Yesterday, Bloomberg reported that hours after the Vice President made some of the claims that actually frightened them, the cedi reverted back to its unenviable record of being the worst performing currency in Africa. Your Excellency, Bloomberg reports that yesterday the cedi was trading at 5.61 at a time that the Vice President was in Ghana celebrating this abysmal performance and a disgrace to the international community, to us from the international community, because then we have once again gone back to be the worst performing currency in Africa. But this time, it was accompanied by us now becoming the fourth worst performing currency in the whole of the world.
We know that event was also broadcast live on the channel, as well as the subsequent social media platforms we have, especially on Facebook and YouTube. We have Alhassan Suhuyini. He's a member of parliament for Tamale North here, and he was monitoring all the live feed and also the discussions and the presentations that went on yesterday. Good morning to you, Alhassan.
Good morning, Roland. Hope you are well.
Yeah, I'm okay.
We thank God.
And how did the rains fare with you this morning?
Well, alhamdulillah, I think that it helped me go through a doomsday night peacefully.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we'll also run by you a schedule that has been brought today by PDS. We'll also try to get some views from the Member of Parliament for Tamale North, Alhassan Suhuyini, on what he thinks about now that the schedule is in. Does it mean that we're on a certain timetable that will help guide us as consumers for electricity? But before we do all that, what will be your own observations about the town hall meeting that was convened by the Coalition for Restoration?
Well, let me say good morning to our viewers, and especially the good people of Tamale North constituency, and good morning to yourself and your team here. I will first of all want to commend the organizers of the forum. They did a good job. It was a beautiful setting, and the timing was also very apt. I also will thank the presenters. I think that they responded to the challenge to provide data, and that competition of the data will help us all establish who really has the true data and on which side the truth is more. I think they did very well. The enthusiasm of the participants was commendable. And the whole expectation of Ghanaians, as I observed yesterday, was also remarkable. And I believe that we did not as a party, fail the people who were, hoping to hear the other side of the story as far as the management of this country is concerned. I am sure that in future presentations, it's going to be more, it's going to be better than this one, because in life you do not seek to do worse or maintain the standard. There's always a need to do better. So I'm very sure that some of the observations that as organizers and as people who took advantage of the platform will be improved upon, in subsequent engagements. But generally, I think that it was brilliant. The whole presentation was intellectually stimulating, and also at times very comical. And that is what a good speech is supposed to do: intellectually stimulate you, but not too boring to make you sleep. And so I think that in all, it was a brilliant outing, and I commend the organizers and our speakers.
And the main speaker of the day was the Bolga Central Member of Parliament, Isaac Adongo. He's been speaking on many other related things, especially on the economy, and giving a lot of replies or rebuttals to the government of the day, the MPP-led government, more importantly. But if you do an analysis of his presentation, you see that he wanted to dwell on the banking sector, and also sought to raise issues about debt management, borrowing, and vis-a-vis what could be the focus for a development agenda for the economy, and what the MPP-led government could be doing vis-a-vis what had transpired in the past. Now, let's take the first focus being borrowing.
Right.
There's been an attempt by Isaac Adongo, even prior to the main presentation yesterday, to try to make an allusion to how much has been borrowed and what that or those sums may have been used for, vis-a-vis what we witnessed under John Dramani Mahama, especially within that 4-year period from 2012 to 2016.
Yes, on borrowing, and maybe first of all, I think that it is proper for me to make a passionate request, especially to people who claim to be neutral in their assessment of some of these presentations that come from those of us who are aligned. My request is that we be a bit critical, or equally critical, of what comes out of the presentations of Dr. Bawumia, just as we are of what comes out of Adongo and other members of the NDC. When we do that, we will be contributing to making the discussion healthier and making it more elevating. I make this request because, you see, when you listen to the presentation of Dr. Bawumia, it is clear that he peddled a number of falsehoods. For example, his assertion that the cedi depreciated by about 8% has been proven to be wrong. According to Bloomberg, is about 12%. And yet he says that it depreciated by 8%, and that's their worst, and it's better than, 8 years performance of a currency. And he compares it to 3 months. That he didn't even, act honestly enough to quote the right figure. Again, you realize that he claimed that the analogy he gave about the exchange rate exposing one's propaganda was done in 2014, which is a palpable lie, because he did that. He gave that analogy in 2012, and he deliberately, decided to deceive the people of Ghana by saying he said it in 2014, because he knows that in 2012, when he was saying it, the fundamentals were super strong. That was the first time Ghana, and the only time Ghana has ever recorded a GDP of 14%. It was the first time Ghana achieved a single-digit inflation since, since the 80s. And the longest sustained single-digit inflation. So the fundamentals at the time were strong. And when the NDC was boasting about those fundamentals, then he came up with that analogy that we could keep on boasting. And that the exchange rate, which was at the time the only challenge of the economy, was exposing us. But he decides to, peddle that falsehood that he made the analogy in 2014. So I'm saying that if we are a bit critical, just as we are of Mr. Adongo and others, we will be helping elevate the discussion further. But when the focus is more on, the likes of Mr. Adongo, then we miss the essence. I'm not saying being critical of Adongo is wrong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that let's just be equally critical, and then we will put all of them on the same pedestal and demand more of them. Now, having said that, if you look at the borrowing as he addressed it, it is clear to us that we are borrowing as a country more than we used to borrow in the 4 years of the NDC. It is clear. The numbers show that indeed the NDC left about a debt stock of about 150. 122. Now we are hovering around 173. We are hovering around 173. And the 120 that we left was not just accumulated within the 4 years. If you do the disaggregation, you realize that the NPP in 2 years have borrowed more than the NDC borrowed in 4 years. At least, just looking at the figures on the books. So the question Adongo was asking is, what is this borrowing for? Forget about the fact that these were people who said borrowing was bad and it was a lazy way of managing an economy and that we had all the resources in this country. Forget about that and answer the question of what their borrowing is being used for and how what they are using their borrowing for can help us pay for these loans in future. That is the critical question. Because when you ask the NDC what we use the borrowing that they criticize for, we are able to tell you, for example, that the Ghana gas today has led to a situation where we are producing our own LPG. 50% of LPG is now being produced in Ghana. And so it is a saving, which is a relief on the cedi, and is also generating other revenue that can be used to pay for that loan that was contracted to construct it. We can also make references to the hospitals that we built across the country. We can make references to the roads that were constructed, the schools that we built. And the impact of all of this on an economy is known by all economic students. The fact that the roads will increase productivity in a country, the good roads will increase productivity in a country. Productivity in every sense of it. Even agriculture will get a boost as a result of good roads because there will not be farm losses. People can transport their farm produce easily. The hospital will make the nation strong. And the people who will be strong will contribute to productivity. The whole idea at the time was to even make Ghana a health tourist destination, so to speak. And I am happy that in the last couple of weeks, I saw stories about even presidents of other nations coming here to receive medical care. The foreign exchange that they bring helps grow the economy. So those were some of the investments that Mr. Setepe those days used to say will pay for themselves. Now today, everything that is borrowed by this government is used to pay salaries, like Mr. Adongo said, or injected into areas that do not produce, returns that you can say can be used to retire these debts in future.
But that's a big argument. For example, if you take some of the literature publications of people like Professor Stiglitz, who is a development economist known around the world, works for the World Bank, the UN, some other related agencies, Professor Jeffrey Sachs, and all of them, they try to draw the analogy that if you're borrowing excessively, it doesn't also mean that it's bad for your economy. The point is, we are undertaking a number of social intervention programs that ultimately would also translate in positive output of the good human resource we have, vis-a-vis if it's free SHS, the introduction of technical vocational education and its consolidation at that level, and even investing in higher education. And ultimately, the social capital of such people, whether in the medium to long term, would also help grow the economy, even though it's transient and you don't see.
I agree with you that, and I'm happy we have all come to that point, that experts, and not Dr. Bawumia, have all agreed that borrowing is not bad. I mean, it used to be a contentious issue in the past. I'm happy that we all agree now that borrowing is not bad. Again, the investments in education, the investments in the human resource of a nation is equally not bad. I'm happy we are all coming around to that discussion. But you see, what kind of investments is important? For example, if you have a situation where Get Fund, that is supposed to use revenue that accrues to it to invest in education, and the funds that accrues to Get Fund today is used to, say, pay teachers' allowances, training teachers' allowances. And that denies Get Fund from providing classrooms that are required, dormitories that are required, science labs that are required.
But you don't think it's just an expenditure that has been deferred? Or you think it's an immediate expenditure that is essential?
So how will the allowances, good as it is, given to the teacher trainee, going to enable you generate revenue to put up the classrooms and the laboratories?
You don't think giving allowances to teacher trainees is important?
I said good as it is. Good as it is. It is, you see, that is why they say economics is a study of how to allocate limited resources. You do not have unlimited resources. So as a nation, you make choices, and every choice you make will come with a cost, because there are choices for you to make. So when you choose one, it means the other will suffer a lack of choice. So when you choose to give Get Fund money to pay teacher trainees, what will suffer is the infrastructure that will enable these students to be trained and become productive, just like the teacher is to your economy. Again, when you use National Health Insurance Authority money, that is supposed to ensure that the health of the nation is strong, to pay nursing training allowances. I'm talking about the kind of investments that we are making, which we are questioning.
But it's a matter of priority.
Fantastic. But you see, the question is, what is the long-term consequences or benefits? That is important. I'm telling you about the effect already that we are having as a result of using Get Fund allowance, Get Funds accruals, for example.
Now, what are the effects?
The effect is that there are congestions in our schools. The effect is that we are even unable to print mock papers for students at the basic level this time. And teachers have had to endure to write their questions on blackboards. The cost is that, you know, the educational system is so confused that teachers, parents, and communities do not even know when they are, what kind of system they are running. And I was talking about the National Health Insurance. The cost is that utilization that used to increase annually and was at about 11 million in 2016 is beginning to drop, and currently is around 10 million. Utilization also is a testament of the confidence of the people on the National Health Insurance scheme. But when you have releases, actual releases to the National Health Insurance Authority dropping every year as recorded in 2017 and 2016, and people go to the hospitals and they cannot have, you know, access as they used to, they'll stop using it. And that is why utilization that used to increase yearly is now dropping yearly. That is the immediate cost. So those are the issues we are questioning. That look, you are getting so much, but the areas that you are investing it in do not give us confidence that future generations will not be burdened with the tax of finding new ways of generating income to pay for this.
Will be better educated because we're roping in more people, more young people who need to be in school. To be in school, for example, if it's a reference to the free SHS policy or program that has been promulgated by government, and that's a constant argument that has been made. But in order for us to make those references and the choices that needed to be made, the synergy created by policy, by way of who will come out of free SHS and how they can get to tertiary institutions and what their output would be in the job market. It's also relatively being supported by government shares, introduction of programs, one district, one factory, and many other related innovations that have been introduced.
Well, I like the hope that when the citizens are...
You think I'm just being hopeful?
Yeah, you are. So I like it, that when they are educated, they will become productive.
You don't think so?
Roland, you see, being in school does not guarantee that the person will come out being productive. Just being in school, the fact that you have the opportunity to be in school does not guarantee a better future for you and the country that has put you in school. It is about the quality of education you get in school. Do you disagree with that? It's about the quality of education that you get in school that will determine if you will become a productive person in the society. It's not just about being in school.
I agree about the quality aspect.
Yes. Yeah. It's not just about being in school. So the issue of, access, the issue of access, as the NDC saw it, was not an isolated issue in terms of what prevented us from training the necessary or required human resource. Access was not the only problem. The problem of education is not only about access. It's also about how, when you provide the access, the people who get in will get better education that will help them come out. But you see, I don't want the discussion to be reduced to free SHS, national health insurance, and others. It's about borrowing, and it's about the utilization of the funds borrowed and the potential to repay these loans as a result of the kind of investments that we make with these amounts that we borrow. And clearly, the NPP has nothing to show in terms of how you can directly link how they are using the investments to how those investments will be paid for in the future. I've just given you how the Ghana gas, for example, can pay for itself. How even the hospitals can pay for themselves. How, because the hospitals generate income. How even the airports that we constructed, the Terminal 3, how they are paying for themselves. How the Tamale airports can pay for themselves. How the Wa airports and the Ho airports, if they had been put to good use, could pay for themselves. So, and you can clearly see, you can practically relate to it, because every day you go to the airports, they are generating revenue. Every day you go to the hospitals, they are generating revenue. So you are not just burdening future generations with debt, but you are also giving them opportunities that they will use to pay those debts and continue to benefit from. We are not seeing that kind of...
One of the main strong points that government and many other independent analysts, whether they could be in academia or think tanks or civil society, have credited this government for is the proper or sound management of the macroeconomic indicators of our economy, relatively compared to when they had come into office prior to 2016. Of course, we know about what may have transpired in 2012, 2014, etc., because of how strong they were at the time. But they had deteriorated 2 years prior to 2016.
And you see, that is fair. And
you agree to
we are not in the politics of obfuscating the facts. It is fair to say that the macro indicators look good. It is not something that we will poo-poo, except to say that those in charge today are demonstrating once again what we have always known them to be, dishonest. Because when when similar fundamentals were posted when they were in opposition, that was when they told us to give our wives single-digit rated chop money. You recall that speech when Dr. Bawumia said that if you are boasting about single-digit inflation, try and give your wife a single-digit inflation chop money. He said that. That was when he said, if you are boasting of macro indicators, exchange rate will expose you. So I'm saying we will not contest the fact that the macro indicators look good, except to just remind the people of Ghana what those in charge today said about those indicators. And if they agreed with them then they should be asking them the questions of what has changed today and why they should be celebrating macro indicators today. We will not bastardize the statistical service and question the figures like they sought to do. But, Roland, what is important is also context. Context of the performance. After 2012, what were the conditions under which those unpalatable indicators were recorded? And then 2016, after 2016, what were the conditions? After 2012, the condition, Roland, was that world commodity prices plummeted. And that is out of the control of every government. Cocoa prices plummeted. Oil prices went down. And nobody in this country controls that.
True, but you had recorded a deficit of close to 12%, if I remember vividly, around 11.9%.
We're talking about after 2012. Yes. And the deficit, I will explain.
By 2012. In 2013, when the budget was read.
If you allow, the context was not just one. I just mentioned one.
Yeah, a number of indicators.
Good.
Yes.
So the first context was that world prices of our exportable products went down. You had the single spine albatross. Remember, President Kufuor signed a single spine, and the NDC began the implementation prior to 2012, which led to doubling of salaries in some cases, which again contributed to the deficits that you speak of. And that was when President Mahama said the single spine has mopped all the money and left to the bone. That's why he said we have eaten to the bone. But again, with the propaganda, it's as if he said he and his people have choice. He said the Ghanaian people, because it was single spine, which was used to pay the Ghanaian people. And so the deficit was recorded. Now, you also had the energy crisis. And Roland, the energy crisis was not imported from Bali by President Mahama. The energy crisis was long predicted before he became president. We had energy crisis under President Rawlings, albeit, on a smaller scale. We had it under President Kufuor for 1 year. We had it under President Mills. And so experts kept warning that if we did not invest in the power sector, the next energy crisis was going to be worse. And so it hit. That is the fourth context. The fifth context is that for a whole year, call it 8 months, where a nation in dilemma because the outcome of the election was challenged at the Supreme Court. And you know what indecision does to investments. People held back, in terms of what kind of business they wanted to do in this country because they were unsure of what the outcome of the court process was going to be. So experts again have told us that 2013 growth was slow, business was slow because of that court's action. I'm not saying it. So these were the contexts, Roland. Now, within that context, the macro indicators responded negatively. But this was a leader, President Mahama, who was not into the blame game, who was not to apportion and explain away the problems, who said, I have been elected to fix these challenges, and so I will fix them. So guess what? By 2016, when he was handing over, he had ensured that investments in the power sector exceeded our demand as a nation. He ensured that by making sure that he dealt with the three challenges the power sector has always faced. You're talking about generation capacity, which he addressed significantly. You're talking about fuel, which he addressed by the bringing on board the Ghana gas, the FPSO, Kwame Nkrumah and others, which ensured that we became somewhat fuel sustainable. Then he sought to address the financial challenge. These were the three challenges experts identified with the power sector over the years. Then the financial challenge was the introduction of ESLA, which was to ensure that the country got about 3 billion annually to retire what was then called legacy debts. And these legacy debts retirement had two ways of solving problems in Ghana. One was to make sure that the energy sector was solvent, and the other was to free the banking sector, because most of these debts were sitting on the books of the banks. So by 2016, he handed over an economy that did not have the threat of doomsday anymore if we had managed it well. He handed over an economy that did not have a problem of fuel supply. And that is how come even the experts predicted in 2016 that Ghana's economy in 2017 was going to grow to about 8%.
Well, we've been told by the energy minister.
And they attributed that growth.
We've been told by the energy minister that constantly the government of John Dramani Mahama may have signed power purchasing agreements far more than we needed. And
I will address that, but I don't want to miss the point about context.
Okay.
So that we get the picture of the growth.
I think you have addressed
I'll address that. But you see, so you see that the NPP actually got more and better conditions handed over to them. And so you expect them to even do better than they are doing today. Because, look, revenue that Ghana got from oil almost doubled as a result of the investment, the work that the NDC did. When you talk about the 8% growth in 2017, the NPP is unable to point to one thing they did to show for the growth.
So the argument is the fallout from 2016 and the investment, the decisions that have
been made. And the truth is in the fact that in 2017 that growth, I mean 2018 that growth dropped because they didn't do anything. Now the issue of IPP, independent power, the facts are there that the minister has not been, very factual with the issues. If you go to the finance committee, they brought their own budget estimates. And in one of their reports, you will see clearly that as we speak today, he tells us that the government of the MPP in that report is considering 60 IPPs. 60. And that as we speak today, not more than 5, in fact 5 IPPs that the NDC signed is what have been cancelled. Just 5 out of about 20. It's just 5. So if the IPPs are wrong, why are they even still in talks with other IPPs and post it as achievement?
Let's spend the last 4 minutes trying to take a look at the government having done, based on its own assessment, tremendous work in managing the macroeconomic indicators, but of course having some difficulties with the CD against the major international trading currencies, especially the US dollar over the last couple of months. Now giving some relief to importers and subsequently also trying to free space so that some further fiscal decisions could be made as far as relatively in that sector, so that we can grow our reserves based on what the IMF is indicating and give a certain positive outlook for the rest of the fiscal year.
Well, that again is why I make that appeal, that it is important that we are as critical of what comes out of government, just as we
because that decision
tend
is a
to
good
be,
decision. It's already
just as we tend to be
reported widely to be reflected.
I agree with you. But I before I deal with the port issue, permit me to just also answer the issue of excess power, because it's important, Roland. As a party, the excess power that is, well, we had excess power and we are paying so much and it was unnecessary. Roland, the president goes abroad and he boasts that Ghana is now exporting power. We are not exporting it for free. The countries that are enjoying it are paying us hard-earned currency. That helps our dollar. Then his minister is in Ghana saying it's bad that we have excess. But you see, they see it as bad when we are unable to utilize it because, Roland, they are not investing in extension of electricity like we were doing. And Ghana is not covered. Ghana is not Accra or Kumasi or Cape Coast.
Well, the last time I read, I know that we have about 83%.
Fantastic. How did we get to 83? The NDC government that was investing in the capacity increment was also extending coverage. So from about 50% within 8 years, we had increased it to 83%. And Roland, 83% within 2 years. Within 2 years, they have just done it for 1%. But on the issue of, I wish you had time on the issue of the
I don't have the time,
unfortunately. But
have you gone to clear any car? I'm sure that you would have gotten some rebates.
Well, I haven't. But you see, Roland, I wanted to just do a practical thing by giving you my phone with the number and everything. I'm dashing it to you. Does it seem weird to you?
Yeah, because it's a you can't just give me free.
Good. I can't just give you free. Yeah. Good. I wonder why we don't ask that same question of our governments when they do that to us. I hope by the end of this year, the finance minister
so you're
again.
Questioning,
the finance
you want
minister,
our citizens to question,
yes,
at what expense?
At what expense? It's important. It's very, very important. At what expense?
It's a freebie.
See, yes, but you
citizens
see, I just offered you a freebie, but you are wondering, hey, because it doesn't make sense. You see, I'm saying that, you see, because the way I offer it doesn't make sense. If you go to, I hope that the finance minister at the end of the year, Roland, will not come and tell us, like he did last year, and express unhappiness that the GRA has failed to meet its revenue target.
That's your worry.
I'm hoping
based on the
that it won't happen
because they have made some
because you see, we had that same reduction in electricity tariffs, Roland. And that is not the first time, by the way, we are having electricity tariffs. We had it under NDC. But when we had it under NDC, Gridco posted a profit of about 7 million Ghana cedis at the end of the year, 2016. ECG posted a profit of about 60 million at the end of the year. Ask me the cost of this current reduction of utility prices. ECG is now indebted yearly. In fact, their debts are increasing by the year. Gridco, their debts are increasing by the year. And that is why you are back to doom so.
Well, I had somebody on the Mines and Energy Committee who had been giving, the last time I went there, expressed the same worry about.
No, look, I wish we had time. I would have given you the figures. From a profit of about 7 million Ghana cedis to Gridco, now in the last 3 years, they have posted a loss of more than 300 million Ghana cedis every year.
Alassane Suhuyini, the eloquent Alassane Suhuyini. Thank you for joining me. He's a member of parliament for Tamale North and helping us do some great discussion. Fallout from that town hall meeting that was convened by the Coalition for Restoration.